All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Joanna,
I'm Cameron.
and we're the Assist. And today we are sitting down and enjoying some wine with Vanessa Conlin. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for jumping on. Kara and I love wine, so we are very excited to be sitting down and talking to you. I don't think I know a single sommelier in my life, I think we both have a lot of questions for you. But why don't you go ahead and give a little background on what you do and where you're at, and we'll kind of ask additional questions along the way.
Absolutely. So I'm Vanessa Conlin. So I'm based in Napa Valley in California. So wine is my career. So my job is I am the head of wine or the chief wine officer of a national e-commerce wine provider called Wine Access. So essentially, we offer thousands and thousands of different wines on our platform every year, and all of that curation runs through my team and then me. So it's a really fun job. I get to taste a lot of wines and do some travel and talk to a lot of really cool people. And then I'm also a master of wine. So master of wine is the highest credential you can get in the wine industry. So I became a master of wine in 2020, and I'm currently one of 56 in the United States.
Um, yeah, I think first off the bat, so something that Cameron and I were very curious about. We did a light stalking on your LinkedIn profile, and we saw that we saw that you actually went to school for music. You got an MFA at Boston University. Which, by the way, I went to Northeastern, so we were kind of school neighbors.
Oh, wow. Yeah, for
Yeah, so I also
sure.
yeah, I also went to school for music, so also another overlap there. But we were curious, like, what made you switch from music to becoming, a master of wine, and how did you get to, your current position?
I grew up in a family of musicians. So my father is a symphony conductor, and my mother was an opera singer. She now is on the administrative side, fundraising for the arts. But so they're both classically trained musicians. Yeah, and I'm an only child. So this was kind of my whole childhood was just completely immersed in music, and I love music, and definitely not just classical music, even though that's what my parents did. But I just like, I can't walk into a room and if there's no music playing, then I started to feel like really uncomfortable. So it's just it was part of my life growing up. I didn't grow up in a family that really knew anything about wine. It wasn't part of their daily lives. And so, to be honest, I didn't even know that there were careers out there in wine, that was a thing that existed. So I went to I studied voice, and then I went to Manhattan School of Music, as you mentioned, and then BU for grad school for opera, and then performed as a professional opera singer for several years. I was in
Wow,
one Broadway show as well. And yeah, and
amazing.
I just, it was a great
What
it was a great
what
time of my life. But
Broadway show were you in?
so I was in Baz Luhrmann's production of La Boheme on Broadway. So Baz Luhrmann, the movie
Wow.
director, producer,
Yeah,
he did
very
he
cool.
produced a version. Yeah, it was great, and we were nominated for a Tony Award. We did not win, but I did get
Oh,
to go to the Tony Awards and perform at Radio City Music Hall. So that was pretty
That
mind blowing. But
that is amazing. Yeah,
that's
that's very
crazy.
cool. Was there like a specific moment where you were like, I really want to, get into this more, or like switch into the wine industry?
there was so I when I was living in New York, and opera, so other than the time I spent on Broadway, which was a steady gig where we performed 6 days a week, um other than that, opera is very much a job where you're in one place for a certain amount of time. You're under contract with a specific opera company, and then you leave. So it's much more rare to be engaged by the same company all the time. So I would have these sort of interim times where I'd be in New York in between gigs, where I'd be maybe learning my next role or just studying, taking voice lessons and stuff. And there was just something about wine that I had always found really intriguing. I thought that there were a lot of similarities that I noticed the way that people talk about wine and appreciate wine, as they do with music. You know, we use some of the same terminology like balance and harmony. Um, and and it's also another way of kind of utilizing your senses. So, you know, listening to music, one of the things that always just was one of the most special things is the way that, you know, you can listen to something and it, you know, can literally give you goosebumps or take your memory back to a time in another time in a place, or, you know, make you actually feel things. And there was something about wine too where it's like it seemed to, you know, using your senses, aroma and taste, that it had a sort of a similar experience for people. So basically, long story short, I had a little bit of extra time in New York, and so I just went and took a class like for fun, and it was just so enlightening. It was so, you know, I just left and my mind was kind of like racing, and I just thought, wow, you know, I love this. I want to learn more. And you know, it wasn't instantaneous. Obviously, I was, you know, had a sort of identity. This is who I am. I'm a singer, right? But so I kind of took a transition period. But you know, I realized that just because I love music and I grew up with it doesn't mean that I have to do it myself. I can still have it in my life and enjoy it, but actually pursue something that to me, it turned out to be much more fulfilling.
I love how you are finding those similarities though with music and wine. I would have
Yeah.
Hmm.
never thought of it in that way of like the balance and the harmony and picking up on notes and things like that. It is very musical if
Yeah.
you step back and think about it.
Right.
So that's really cool that you found something else that you were really excited about that was completely different from music, but finding those
Yeah.
similarities. And I think, you know, a lot of our subscribers go through that where they feel pigeonholed into a career because they've been doing it for, you know, 5, 10 plus
20
years.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, and what they don't
Hmm.
realize is that you can find other industries where your skills translate. So it seems like, you know, being one of 50 masters of wine, like what is that? What did that look like? Like, what is the training
Yeah.
involved in there? Like, how much are you studying for that?
Yeah. So, a lot. so, so the Master of Wine, basically to even apply to it, you have to have basically achieved every other possible credential leading up to that you can. So you have to show that you've already done that. You have to have worked in the wine industry already for 7 years. You have to be recommended by a current Master of Wine, and you have to actually take an exam to even start the program. So that's to get started, and then it's a, you know, it's a multi-year process at minimum, to pass. So we study all sorts of things, you know, about, you know, viticulture, so the growing of grapes, vinification, so the winemaking, the business of wine, laws, current events. And there, you know, multiple things that you have to sort of be a well-rounded expert on, and that's in terms of just like theory and essay writing that we would do as part of the exam. And then there's also a fairly significant tasting exam. So we what's called blind taste wines to identify them. So we're not actually blindfolded. We're poured wines in front of us where we can obviously see the color. But that's all we can assess at that point. And then, you know, under time circumstances, we have to, again, you know, use your senses to kind of figure out where am I in the world and what am I drinking. And so, you know, you're identifying what is the grape variety or varieties in the glass, where is it from, how is it made, what's the quality level, what do you think the price would be on a shelf, you know, so sort of all this. And so we taste 36 wines blind as part of that exam. And then when you pass that, just when you feel like it should be over, then you have to write a research paper. So the last portion is you have to do an original work of research, um, and submit that.
Yeah. It seems like more stressful than any like MBA, PhD. Like it seems like there's a lot to go through for wine. So you must seriously be very passionate about it to even start to come up, go through this process. How do you kind of like separate this? You work for a wine company. You clearly love wine. I'm sure you drink a lot of wine. You live in Napa, this like huge capital of wine. How do you separate this like work life, fun life, this balance?
Yeah, well, I mean, luckily I love what I do and I find it fun. So so there's that. and I love this community. So I'd say, in terms of like day to day, so, when we're assessing wines as professional, let's say I'm tasting a wine to maybe put on the Wine Access platform, I'm not actually drinking it. We spit the wine out, which is what I would do in the exam as well, So, I mean, there is a definite difference from like, oh, I'm just like drinking all day at work to like, no, I'm like tasting this to assess it, and I'm really I'm looking at it also in a way, if it's for the Wine Access platform, that is considering that everyone have personal preferences. We all do, right? But there's a wine out there for everybody. And so there are plenty of wines that run our platform. There's nothing that I would run that I didn't fully believe in and, think that it really over delivers for the price to the quality ratio and has a story to tell and, someone would be really excited about. But not all of them are ones that I'm going to personally buy and drink on my free time. So when I'm assessing wine for my work, I have to take my personal preferences out and just really say like, if I was a consumer of this wine, would I be really happy getting this mailed to my house? Whereas of course at home, I can never fully turn that side off of my brain where I'm always going to be like putting my nose in the glass and really like, it doesn't occupy, I can still enjoy it. I can have fun. I can have a conversation with friends and, it's not like I have to be studious at that point. So there definitely is a distinction between the two.
Okay, I have to
That's
know.
awesome.
So anytime I drink wine, I pour it in the glass
Mhm.
and I just drink it. What is like the proper way to actually fully get all the essence, I guess, of the wine?
So in short, I mean, as professionals, we'll assess it as the color, we'll look at it, but you don't really need to worry about that, right? But I'd say I would start here. So like I always swirl it. It's all in the wrist. And that's just to really open up all the aromas, because if you think about this wine, like it's been sort of slumbering in this bottle, when you take the cork out, or maybe it's a screw cap, it doesn't matter. Either way, this wine has been in this bottle. It kind of maybe needs a moment to go, an exhale, so doing this, it really opens up, it allows a little bit of oxygen in the glass. It's going to sort of intensify those aromas. And then that way, like when you put your nose in the glass, which I love, I love assessing aromas, then you'll have a better opportunity to do that. And then, again, I love this, so I do it. If you want to go right to the tasting, you can do that too. But then, so my main suggestion would be this, which is, so I always say this if I'm, teaching a class or doing a video for our members or whatever, is when you're tasting the wine, whether you're going to spit it out because you're assessing it professionally or you're going to consume it because you're having fun, is to really swish it around your mouth. So rather than just kind of sip it and have it be gone, is like let it touch kind of every corner of your mouth. So it's almost like you're swishing it like it's mouthwash in a way. And then pay attention. And I will guarantee you, if you do it, kind of try it once just down the hatch and then try it once really doing that, and you're going to notice so many more things. And the other thing that allows too is there's so many things about wine that are beyond just the flavors that happen on your palate. There's really things, textures. I call it also a palate shape, where different wines, literally, some feel very linear, some feel broad, some feel spherical. There's a whole kind of other layer that you're going to miss. So that would be my key suggestion.
I was just going to say, and a lot of people ask us, they had questions before we kind of chatted to you, and they were like, how am I supposed to describe a wine? So, just besides a red and a white. So telling, I'm sure you can get more palate notes if you just hold it in your mouth. You can kind of distinguish, okay, is it a little bit spicy? Is it like sweet? Is it whatever? So maybe we could, also, if you have any other tips for that, how would you describe wine?
Absolutely. So, part of it is practice, and some people have more aptitude for things like being able to discern aromas and smells. We're just, aromas and flavors. We're just born with a different level, so it's easier for some people than others. But I know a lot of times people will say like, oh, I can't tell you what I'm noticing until you say it. And then I notice it. Right. So part of it can be power of suggestion, but you can get beyond that by, the way, keep in mind, I'm like a crazy wine nerd, but this is, what I did was I would go to the farmer's market, and pick up every single flower, every piece of fruit, every herb, and kind of just get a memory, because you can find so many of those things in the glass. Again, none of that is actually in the wine, it's just grapes, but it will express itself. You'll hear people say, oh, I'm getting, peaches and apricots and, dusty gravel, or it's really, you can practice that. You can open up every spice in your spice jar and do the same thing, and just try to start getting a sense memory for that. And same with flavors, just pay attention. Again, use that method I said, where you're really, letting it touch every corner of your palate. But then also there are things in terms of what you're feeling that are beyond flavor. So, high acid wines, something like a crisp, I'm drinking a Chablis. So this is a very high acid, dry, crisp wine. And I would be able to assess that if I didn't know what was in the glass, because, immediately my mouth is watering. So when your mouth starts to water, that's acid. And acid is something that you want in all wines, whether red, white, rosé, sparkling, dessert. It's a backbone of the structural component, but it's also what makes wine pair so well with food. So the acidity, it almost like refreshes your palate the way like a squeeze of lemon would. So it cleanses it, refreshes it. It makes you want to come back for another bite. Another really kind of easy one that they could start to incorporate into ultimately, the best glass is whatever is going to get that wine in your mouth. But you can, you can definitely spend a lot of money and get really detailed if you want to. Ultimately, so I'm tasting out of, I'm drinking this wine right now, actually. This is an all-purpose glass. So I could put white, sparkling, rosé, anything in this glass, it's fine. But, some easy ones are generally white wine glasses are smaller. Red wine glasses tend to have a larger bowl. And then burgundy glasses are the ones that are sort of shaped like a bulb. And so a burgundy glass, you would put Chardonnay or Pinot Noir in. It allows for a little bit more surface area. So when you're, swirling it and assessing it, putting your nose in it, you're going to be able, those tend to be more delicate varieties, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So you're going to be able to kind of get more of an assessment. Whereas a Bordeaux glass, which is shaped more like this, is going to, you're not going to have as much surface area, but it's going to show you kind of more structure. So all of that to say is they're literally on the market. You can buy a different type of glass for almost every type of wine in the world. And if you enjoy that, you should 100% go for it. But if you have a tumbler at home and that's all you have, that's also totally okay. Their vocabulary is noticing the body of a wine. So you'll hear people say, oh, it's light bodied or it's full bodied. And body is, it's a textural component. It's a structure. It's not a taste. But what it is, it's the feeling of the weight of the wine on your palate. So you can do a sort of comparison, if you're trying to learn this at home, of a light-bodied wine feeling like skim milk, a medium-bodied wine feeling like 2%, and a full-bodied wine feeling like whole milk. And again, not talking flavor at all, just that, how they feel different.
Heavy.
So that's a way to practice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Being able to talk about, so this is a light-bodied, crisp, high-acid wine. See, now you.
I've never heard a comparison with that to milks before. So like that actually, I completely understand actually after that.
Yeah, makes sense.
It totally makes sense. What about glasses? Like I know that there are designated like reds and white glasses. Like if you had to give like a general rule of thumb for people who are looking to find the appropriate wine glass, what would you advise? So something that we like to ask our, featured women of the week is what is the best piece of advice you've gotten so far in your career?
It's probably not from my wine career, but sort of just back to probably being a musician, which is it's to treat everybody with respect. And it came, in the theater world or the music world, there was always like, be kind to the person who's like sewing your costume, or, doing your makeup, cause like it all matters, right? And they're the people ultimately that are going to like be there to support you and help you look good and be successful. And so it's
Yeah.
something that I always practice and believe in, and something I do now too, which is just like, we're all part of the same community. You never know where people are going to end up and what they're going to end up doing. And people are always in a different
Yeah.
stage of where they are in their career and their life. And it's just, I think, really important to, with everybody, treat them with respect, have integrity with your work, and just be a person of your word.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and what did they say? It's like you never know who you're going to work for, right? Like that
Yes,
could be somebody that you overlooked,
exactly.
and so it's definitely important to do that. So great
Yeah.
answer. Yeah. Okay, so you've tasted tons of different types of wines. What is your favorite and why?
So the short answer is probably champagne. Okay, no, it's definitely champagne. Um,
Ooh.
so yeah, I'm a big fan for a number of reasons. One is it's just fun and celebratory. Just the act of opening the
Yeah.
bottle. There's the ceremony of it. There's a ritual to it. You hear the cork pop. You get to look at the beautiful bubbles, and then of course it
Mm-hmm.
tastes delicious. It's celebratory. It makes people feel like it's a special occasion, even if it isn't.
Yeah.
So all those reasons, plus champagne is actually really, really food friendly. So I know often people will have it
Oh.
like maybe before a meal or, at the beginning of a meal, but actually champagne is great with fatty foods and it's really great with salty foods. So you can do
Yeah.
things like, you can go super highbrow. You could do like, caviar and, smoked
Yeah.
salmon and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really great with fried chicken and
Mm-hmm.
it's
Oh my
delicious with
gosh.
potato chips.
Yeah. That's That's
Yeah.
Have to
awesome
give it a
because
shot. I
you're
can
kind
do
of you're
that.
yeah
Caviar, not
because
so
you're kind of
much.
that's actually a perfect segue to my next question, which is like, what are your if you had to do like general guidelines? I'm sure it depends on like each type of wine, but what would you
Mhm.
say pairs well with what foods? Like, what types of wine should you be aiming to have with certain dishes?
Yeah. So there are really no rules. Ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of what you want to spend first of all, but also what you enjoy together. So um, there really are no rules, but a couple of sort of rules of thumb that I do follow are so spicy foods are good with wines that have a little bit of residual sugar, so it can kind of tame the heat of the wines. If
Okay.
so, something like an off dry Riesling is really great with, say, like some Thai food or something with some heat. That those go really
Yeah.
well together. Um, High acid wines and high acid foods pair really well together. So something like, let's say, a Sauvignon Blanc is a very high acid wine that goes really
Mm-hmm.
well with things like goat cheese has a very high acidity. Tomatoes
Okay.
have a high acidity, so anything with a tomato sauce,
Yeah.
vinaigrettes, something like that. So high acid with
Mm-hmm.
high acid tends to pair well as well. So those are two like really easy ones, to
Yeah.
remember, but it's really fun just to sometimes you can find really unexpected pairings that are really
Yeah.
delicious.
Have you come across one that you're like, wow, did not think that would go well?
I can't take credit for this one because this one of my team members who's a master sommelier, he tipped me off to this, but we generally often think about red wine with a steak, like Napa Cab and a steak is like such a standard pairing. And actually, if you have a fattier cut of meat, like a marbled cut of steak, it actually can go really well with a buttery Chardonnay. Would not expect that, right? Yeah, but the sort of the butteriness of the Chardonnay, it almost acts like this like pat of butter on the steak. It's really delicious.
So tell us more about wine access. Like, I know that you're helping curate, but like, what are I know that you have different like levels of membership. Can you kind of give a breakdown of like if
Mhm.
somebody were to go to wine access or your website, right? And they're kind of between
Yes.
things to pick from. Yeah, like what would you suggest for maybe like like a newbie to wine and like people who have more refined palates? Like, are there certain ones that you would recommend membership wise over the other?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing I would note is that we do have a number of wine clubs where you sign up for this sort of subscription series and you're a member, but that's
Yeah.
only one way to buy wine from us. So, we
Hmm.
have an online store where you don't have to pay a fee. You're not subscribing to something that's going to be reoccurring. You can just go shop the way that you would in a store and just say, oh, that looks fun. I'm going to buy one of that and two of this and
Hmm.
none of that. So you can easily do that. Just go to wineaccess.com. We also have what we call a daily offer, which means we send an email out every day featuring a different wine. So
Mm.
we'll do, a full write up of original content about that wine,
Yeah.
why we love it, the background of it, the people, what we tasted. So you can do that as well if you want to buy wine via email. And then we do have, a number of different subscriptions or clubs that you can
Hmm.
sign up for. We have different price levels you can do. We
Hmm.
have a number of our own subscriptions, but then we're also the official wine provider of the Michelin Guide. It's very cool because you get to kind of like get literally like a taste of what you might experience in that restaurant if we were going to go have wines off their list. So there's that. We partner with Wine Folly as well. We have a subscription series we do with her, and so that's also a really great educational resource. And every Wine Folly club or every club of our own, which we call Discovery Club, we always have a theme that you're going to learn something. So it's never just like a random assortment of things. It'll be like, we're going to focus on up and coming regions, or multi-generational family winemakers, or different winemaking techniques, and then we give a full explanation. We write about it. I film videos. You get the video sent to you if you want to taste along with me at home. So anyway, it's a great way to learn and have some fun, and there are a number of ways to buy wine.
To end it off, if you could give our audience of, aspiring professionals one piece of advice to help them blossom in their career, what would it be?
Oh gosh, good question. One piece of advice. I'd say don't be afraid of fear. Honestly, there's I'm going to relate this back to date when I was a performer, right? So there's like you have this fight or flight, and when I was a singer, there were times I was more confident in my performance, and there were times where I was like, I was nervous. And
Yeah.
you can like channel that energy into a positive, like that adrenaline can actually amplify your performance. It can give you energy, it can give you focus. And so I'd say just because something makes you feel out of your comfort zone or makes you have that little bit of like adrenaline doesn't mean it doesn't mean it's the wrong thing to do, or you should avoid it. It can actually mean you're really heading in a direction where you're going to find fulfillment and step into a new version of yourself, or find a new step in your career.
That's
Yeah.
amazing
That's
to
a
hear. And I think a
that's
lot our
mhm.
subscribers will really relate to that.
Thank you so much again for, sitting down with
Yes,
us and sharing your knowledge about
Of
wine. I
course.
feel like I've definitely learned so much about just even drinking wine. I feel like I've learned a lot from you. So thank you so much for, really diving in and sharing your experience and, tips with us, and then, our subscribers who will be tuning into this. You've also been gracious enough to answer a lot of our FAQs from our readers, so we'll be sure to provide that wine guide as well. So thank you again, Vanessa, for hopping on, and we can't wait to try, wine access for ourselves. So
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.